Maxed Out Man, helping you become the man you were made to be.
Hey guys, it's Kevin Davis from the Maxed Out Man podcast. This is episode number 43. I am here with Bobby Bakshi. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Bobby is a dad. I love that you put dad first in your LinkedIn profile. Very cool. He specializes in culture transformation, DEIB, and leadership consulting. And he's also a speaker and the host of Bridging Divides with Bobby Bakshi on YouTube. So that's your kind of a quick and dirty profile bio. But hey, give us a little bit more about your background. I got to tell you, I'm super excited because this is a topic that either A, I'm a complete idiot in, or B, I have preconceived notions based on popular opinion which I think so many do. So I think this will be super educational and, for me. But give us kind of your background, how you got here, what you do, and all that.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Really, firstly, gratitude for having me. Glad we get to meet today. Let's see. The way I think I'll open into it is a bit about context around my background. So my dad, I was born in India, and my dad, as a youngest of three kids, and as I was growing up, my dad was in different divisions of the United Nations. So, Philippines for a year when I was, I think, 6. And then actually even before that, Nepal, Jamaica for 5 years, and then back to India in boarding school for a year. And then my dad got this great job at the World Bank in DC, so 3 years in DC. So I'm kind of unique, mostly you'd see people of Indian origin come to the US or leave India for their, higher education. And it's funny, I said often I'm uneducated because I got the easy path. I got high school and grade school outside of India. If you don't know already, India is very academically oriented. And then I went back and did my 11th and 12th and my undergrad, which is, really all you have to do is study for one exam. So it was wow, all right. And I'm not academically inclined. And so, I used to joke, I'm not educated till I got my MBA in the U.S. later. And now, I've been in the U.S. 32 years. So that's a little bit about me personally. And then, my wife and I met when I was on an internship in Madison, Wisconsin from India. She was going to school at University of Wisconsin. We've been together in 2 years. So, and we had 3 kids. Yeah, the dad part, thanks for catching that. It is the most important part to me. 3 teenage kids. So all the other. So it's almost like when you say you're acknowledging me for putting dad first, it's almost like, oh yeah, and that's my pain.
You are in the thick of it, as we say. My girls are 24 and 20. Well, actually just turned 20. So I got a 25 and 24-year-old. She just turned 24. And man, I empathize and sympathize for dads of teenagers. Do you have girls or boys?
2 girls and a son, and very impacted by COVID in the sense of, they're loners, they just really like to hang out at home, which is a good thing in many ways, but just so many layers to that. So I don't know if we're going to go there, but I think when we first, and not, you've given me that liberty of we can go in any direction, conversation. And I think when you're saying the topic, right? So I think the topic may be, and we can go anywhere, but really the divided world that we live in. I mean, right, we're sitting here on October 10th. I don't know when this will get published, but, what's happening with Israel and Palestine is, I can't even remotely talk about it because I don't have enough knowledge. But and that's just top of mind for all of us is you look anywhere, right? I mean, we know how divided America is. I still have family in India, my mom and sister in India. So I keep up with things at a very surface level, but again, very divided. Just everywhere you look, there's a lot of division. So to just finish off on the intro, the reason I came up with the term bridging divides with me, with my name on it, is because I really woke up to that earlier this year. It's like, oh my gosh, I kind of lived the bridging divide. Like, been in cultures like Jamaica that truly are a melting pot. People from Asia, from African origin, Brits, and they've all intermingled and intermarried, and it's a very complex culture. And so again, they say that I dabble in understanding those differences, but at least I have the awareness to know how to get curious and pause and get to know people. Right. So how's that to get us started here?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, is that even if we don't have intimate knowledge, which it's having that understanding and that willingness to be open and honest and have discussions. I've talked a few times on this podcast that I'm an evangelical Christian, but I have friends that are staunch atheists, which is actually kind of its own form of religion. But we can have open and honest conversations about what we believe and what we don't believe and why we believe them. And there's no vitriol or anger or anything like that. And to your point, I think one thing that's interesting is that now that we've got the Israel and Hamas issue happening, as we speak, everybody has moved from medical experts that they were last week on social media to now everybody's a global policy expert and politico expert. So it's like it's just so bizarre that people self-proclaim that they are experts because of their own opinions, right?
Let me say this, Kevin. Yeah, to that one, right? I think what we suffer from is people are so scared to really get to know themselves that it's much easier to postulate and share opinions about things we know very, very little about, if anything. Thank you for correcting me, but you're right. Israel and Hamas, not outside. And so, those things are so complicated. I have friends that are from those areas, and so I humbly ask them to teach me, to hear different perspectives. I also had, I kind of stumbled upon this, but now it's become sort of a game. So I travel a lot for work, and often at first class, most always, and you sit with someone next to someone, and typically, especially first, like you don't talk to them, and put on your headphones, and
I got stuff to do. Get me to my destination as comfortably as possible.
Right. Yeah. And I offered this stuff a couple of years ago, and I'll actually describe this as a very specific example. A guy sitting next to me, we're in the first row, full cowboy gear. I think it was like down. Full cowboy gear. And my first reaction is like, I don't want to have anything to do with this. And
this backwoods hick, right?
No, not that. That label on it. But it was like, I think this is going to be a long conversation, so I don't want to go there. And he was already a bit drunk and asked for another drink before we take off. And something in me that said, I need to get this. So took off the headphones, started making small talk. And long story short, his story was that he was ex-military or something, armed forces, part of his government, and now has a very lucrative business in something very high security, I think like securing buildings, right? And what really intrigued me was he saw this as payback. Sort of like, I know the system, I know how to work it, and now I, for all those years that I put my life on the line, I now get to charge the government tons of money and do this business, right? So it's like, again, my opportunity in listening to that and navigating that conversation was I was very aware of my judgments, my perceptions, what I'm hearing and about this person. But more and more we talked, all I could really connect with because of his humanity. Having compassion for him and seeking to understand him. So that's the gist of Bridging Divides in my view, is we did more of that than, on the one hand, crap talk of stuff we don't know about, in social media. And on the other hand, pretty pictures of meals we've had on Instagram when our life falling apart.
Yeah.
Come on, be real. So Yeah, I'm really passionate about that. And I think we still have to, before AI takes over and we we're human or not.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have
Till
that round.
till AI decides that we're irrelevant and unnecessary, and it can do its own thing. I know a lot of talk about that, but one of the things that's interesting, and I'll self admit that I have been one of those guys, right? Like they would say, "Hey, well, this X," and I always had a statement, and honestly, it's still relatively true that stereotypes exist for a reason. Right? Like there are certain stereotypes, and for the most part, I think you can find something that actually fits that profile in a lot of people, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's a negative thing in that person. And I think one of the best things about doing this podcast is that I have an opportunity to sit down with people, that I have nothing essentially in common with other than humanity. And my wife, who I've been married to for 28 years, has said, you have become such a better listener as a result. And I have another podcast too. So I'm 100 episodes into these things. She's like, you're such a better listener now because you have had to learn to keep your mouth shut while other people talk and tell you their story.
The truth, our loved ones, they speak the truth. I love it. Yeah, I hear you. And likewise, by the way, I've always considered myself not a good listener. And over the years, and I keep getting feedback that I am a good listener. It's like, no, you don't know what's going on up here. There's a lot of talk going on up in that nation. We need to really dial it down to go, wait a minute, let's prove ourselves wrong there about the stereotypes that I make up.
Yeah. So tell me what, when you say the phrase DEI, right? And you're putting the B, which honestly, I don't know what that means either. So I want you to define it, but in today's culture, to our very point that we just make, when someone says DEI in kind of a conservative environment, right? I tend to be more conservative. Then you instantly, there's all these, bells and whistles go off, and honestly, it's perpetuated by the media, because they're like, well, hire a black person to be a pilot. Don't hire the best pilot, right? Like that's our main objective is to hire, an ethnicity, a race, or whatever. It just gets completely convoluted. So can you just explain what we're talking about? Because I honestly haven't have enough to be super dangerous. That's basically it.
Thank you. Yeah, that's some context here for your listeners. So the term, just to be very explicit, right, in case people don't even know it, DEI stands for diversity, equity, inclusion. And the B that's become quite common lately is belonging. Right, so mostly in the corporate culture kind of space, and I just gave a opening keynote at a architects, engineers, and construction industry conference called Dancing in Action, and I made 3 points, but the opening was to say, because the room was full of conservatives, is that I believe DE&I and B, the way we've been doing it the last couple of years, especially since George Floyd, we need to scrap that. We need it to go away. Because what we've done actually is we've added more separation, bringing truth. Right? There's been a lot of pause. Like say, almost 100% of what I've been seeing, especially in the media, is calling people out rather than inviting. I pause there because it's like, yeah, there's some exceptions, but really, for the most part, even large corporations and their position on things is about calling the separation out rather than trying to find a way to bridge. Right? And so there's a woman that I do want to give credit to, Loretta Roth. I think it's have a TED Talk, and she makes that. She goes, look, we just call people out all the time. We got to invite people in. So my example of the cowboy sitting next to me is my humble attempt at inviting him, so that we can really talk person to person and man to man and human, rather than, oh, great, you're conservatives. I'm going to put my headphones on. And then you hold on that, Kevin. I used it in that same talk. Edelman is this global PR company. They do an annual trust barometer. They came up with the most staggering and scary number that 80% of people, I believe it was 80% of people, do not want to work next to, live next to, or have anything to do with anybody that thinks different.
Oh,
Talk about the end of civilization.
holy cow. Yeah.
And then, my work, I mean, my business is consulting on culture transformation. So I'm very fortunate to get the attention of CEOs, mostly white male CEOs, to recognize that if that's what's going on and you're not really shedding light on, those things that happen, usually in pockets, right? It's like that coffee talk, the hallway conversation. And I go, look, and those CEOs have made up stories about what they think is going on. And usually are complacent. They sit back and go, yep, people will be people, there'll be differences, instead of going right at it. So dancing in eggshells instead of walking on eggshells, right, was the title of my talk, to say that the times are too serious for us to be walking on eggshells. We can't just go, yep, I'm not going to talk to Bobby because he's whatever label you put on me. Instead, you lean in and you really roll up your sleeves. And you have the courage to have, bring your perspective. I welcome that because, and that's the last thing I'll say about, again, we're just talking about setting the stage for the definition. Academia is very much to blame for where we are since about 2010. There are great books about this. I mean, authors, academics have written about it, that this highly liberal way of even not letting conservatives, right-wing speakers to come into a university to share their point of view because they could traumatize students. Bullshit. Because where's freedom of speech? It's like, if you're going to not be willing to hear a view that you disagree with, how can you even decide if you disagree with it? If you haven't given it space to speak. And I'm bringing, Kevin, I think I'm very involved in the project, the Mankind Project, and the term shadow, which Jung crafted, and the short version is those things that we hide, suppress, and deny. So I think all of us are guilty of putting those things we don't want to talk about away. Be it Thanksgiving with the family, and all the separation in the last couple of years of who to invite, who not to invite, the separate rooms, probably if you do show up with the people who you don't agree with, it begins there, right? And then it has impact on so the individual, the collective, organizational, and societal culture. So it's we all have to do our part. Is my main message.
Yeah, it's it's interesting, the whole, because I've been hearing, obviously it's a big hot topic, is the university side of things, and it's not just limiting speakers. Like it appears, and you can speak to this if you want, but there's a systematic removal and sanitization of any topic and any person that doesn't fit the mold. And I mean, are we creating just an entire generation? First of all, the whole words are weapons things, like you were physically harmed by something I say, is a little kind of weird, in my opinion, and dangerous the way that they use it. But are we creating a whole generation of kids that literally you're going to turn that 80% into 98 or 99%?
Yeah, no, we already have. Gen Z is that, and my kids, that's fine. It's so fascinating. They're pretty sheltered, I don't think they get drawn into too much of the polarization, and that's also scary, right? It worries me as a dad. It's like, oh my gosh, you expose yourself to different. It's sort of like food, right? I mean, gosh, if you're like, one thing I eat is noodles or burgers, like, wow, there's a whole world out there, things. And that's why, by the way, back to things like travel, that's why the way it was brought up, it's so exciting to go experience places, especially places that I'm scared of. This country, I don't know the language, how am I going to navigate things? I'll give you an example. My son, who's 15, is very quiet. Mostly, if I try and engage them, they get the classic, like, I don't know, like conversations that are, just gentle and want to engage, just want to connect. But the connection with travel is we're so blessed that we send him on a school trip from middle school in 8th grade spring to Europe. So, one of those packed, like 10 days, back to back, 4 or 5 country cities. He came back absolutely like energized, like ask him anything about where he went. He talked about it, share stories, he'd share what he liked, what he didn't like. That's a classic example of, if we get to that stage of getting curious and digging into these things rather than walking away from them, running away from them. And your percentage, wow, that's shocking. I think we're already there in some ways, right? We look by pocket of things that people have just totally created this wall and are not willing to hear.
Yeah, and it's, I love the travel thing. My my youngest, we sent her to Costa Rica on 2 separate trips. She actually did an immersion school for Spanish, so she's actually trilingual, Spanish, ASL, and English. But she was 14 years old. We spent it, 3 months in Costa Rica. She came back for a little bit, did 3 months. She's been to Puerto Rico and Nepal and Costa Rica and all these other countries, more than we have. And it made her such a broader thinking person. And I've had conversations with, my Black friends or gay friends or anybody else. And what I always find interesting is that the most vocal people about issues within those communities are, heterosexual white girls. Like, those are the upper middle class white girls always seem to have or boys seem to have the biggest opinion about issues that have ultimately no effect on their daily life, and so it's interesting but that travel exposes people to other cultures, and you're immersed in that. So whether, like, if you go to an African country and you have a certain belief about Black culture, for example, or African American culture, then your world's about to explode when you go there.
Exactly. I'll give you another example I'm so proud of, and one of the reasons my wife and I connected when we met at first was that she's the youngest of 7 farm family, like middle Wisconsin, small town, 600 population.
So culturally exactly like you is what you're saying.
Parts to that, right? So German descent, not actually Austrian. About the travel, one of the things that really had us connect is that she took her, only 1 out of 7 kids, to take herself through college, bus and tables and all of that to pay for college, and then paid her way to Taiwan during college and took the year off to, to teach English, earn money.
Mm-hmm. ESL stuff.
Yeah, learn Mandarin Chinese. Now, I'm going to be very graphic and specific. Kind of things that she encountered would be, and I think I have her permission to say this, people speaking in Chinese behind her back about her body image, right? And she understands, right? And but doing it, right? And being, and at the same time, the kind of friends she created and the expectations could continue. So, I think when we do the black and white, you're just going down the rabbit hole. And my point is, like, yeah, sometimes we do end up getting abused with people's words and actions, but don't look away. Don't run away. Dig into it, because mostly, I hope, we're safe, right? Yes, I know we live in a world where people pull out guns and things, but for the most part, most of us are fortunate not to be in situations where that could be a possibility. That, if that's why you don't speak up, is because you're afraid of getting shot or something. I think that's more rare than depending on where you are. So I really wish people would have more courage to just engage in the conversation. I mean, think about how we started this conversation. Outside of a podcast, even here, I mean, really, it could be like if we just both opened with, yeah, I think I'm liberal, and you go, I'm really conservative. all and end right there, right? Didn't do that. We're both respecting one another. We're both open to different perspectives. Oh, and then the other related piece is the laziness, I think, that we have as society around really checking your facts, right? The old sort of, taking sides on what facts to believe is, again, an ego thing. It's an ego thing. Come on, do your homework, dig around, look at multiple sources. Don't take the word of one media article, one writer to be the truth. Just really do your own work. And easy about that. It's like if I'm a Fox News person, that's all I listen to, or CNN. They're both terrible. So just grow up and think for yourself.
Yeah, I've had that exact conversation with my youngest, who's the more liberal of my children and of the family. So she's and she prides herself a little bit on it. She's a bit antagonistic, but she sees it as a bonding experience, which I think is interesting, that us discussing these things in an argumentative way is bonding, which is fine. We've dealt with that. We have safe words for our conversations, but I've said so many times to her, it's like, I'll have a discussion about any topic that you want, as long as you either A, admit that you don't really know what you're talking about and we want to learn together, or B, you've educated yourself to a point where you can have an open, logical discussion about it, right? Like, don't spew back to me what you've heard on Facebook or TikTok or whatever about those things. And I'll try not to do the same, because then, the tendency then is when someone else is digging in, that you dig in on your side in these conversations. And so it's trying to keep that open conversation going with people, instead of, and I mean, if anybody doesn't know now that media is, you can say fake media on either side, because it's 100% curated to get you to believe and say what they want you to support a narrative, and to continue to divide us, because division, and it sells eyes. That gets us to watch, because we love that division stuff, right?
Yeah. Here, Kevin, I'll share a model with you. I know it's just a chat, but if you bear with me on emotions, right? So I created a model that it's not bring it in. If you think of an iceberg, right? So the tip of the iceberg is anger. I think it's emotion. We all have our version of anger. Then the first line under the water is like, oh my gosh, the world's changing, demographics are changing, there are more immigrants here, right? There's one version. Under the fear is sadness. Oh gosh, the American dream, the picket fence, where's that going? Right? That's sadness. And the next layer under the sadness, which you're getting close to the base of the ocean, is grief. Wow, do we resist going to, right? May relate to being in the period of grief under some of you. But when it comes to these sort of topics, separation, very few of us have courage to really allow ourselves to get to, right? And only when you touch peace will you then touch true joy, which I think is every human's desire. And so back to like that cowboy conversation, is that I feel me connected like that. We didn't aim it by those emotions, but as I'm listening to him, I have compassion for him, for what he's gone through. I don't agree with many of the decisions he's made on the one hand. On the other hand, as an entrepreneur, business person myself, I had great admiration for what he's created.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to this episode. I hope you're enjoying it and learning a lot. If you're looking for extra help, don't forget that I do offer one-on-one coaching. We can talk through a ton of different issues. I can give you guides, guidelines, and logistical help to help you take that next step or go to that next level in some of the things that you're dealing with in your life. We also have some course content, some guides, and a lot of educational materials over at maxedoutman.com. For the coaching, go ahead and go to maxedoutman.com/coaching. And you can learn about that. And then just go to maxedoutman.com for everything else. Thanks for joining us. Now back to the episode.
And judgment about, your kind of work in the system. And that's the other one, right?
Yeah.
When we see role models and leaders game the system, we believe it's okay to do that. And that's, again, another bullshit one. It's like, come on, stop it. I don't think that's how most of us were raised. To me, put aside conservative and liberal, it's just core values, right? It's like, I'm relentless about respecting you. And so if I see a great difference with you, I have to look at myself first. What is it that's causing me to be angry at someone else? And what can I do about myself? And most of us don't have it. It's much easier to point fingers out.
Yeah.
Talk about separation. It's like sports. I mean, it's a spectator sport. It's like, and so again, to your listeners, I would say, stop that. Get off the sideline, jump in, do the tough things, to have the conversations so that you can explore, what's working. I'll give you an example. I think it's well documented. But a black man ends up in the South somewhere in a car. They've all known each other. I'm going to get the details later on, but I'll get to the main point quickly. Knows that he's sitting next to the driver is a KKK leader, right? And that KKK leader is talking about his data, his facts on why black people are dangerous to this black man. But, they're kind of friends, like they know each other. And, so the black guy, instead of getting angry, asks some questions of inquiry, right? Without challenging him, but just asking him, like, so do you know that, for instance, all serial killers in America have been white? Yeah, right? Again, I don't remember specifics, but my point is he planted a seed that how is he approaching life, and why is he driven to put his flag for that separation, that organization? And nothing else happens. The man doesn't respond to the data that the black man gives him. They stay in touch. But 3 months later, there's a knock on the door from the black guy, and he shows up with his robes and says, yeah, I quit. Thanks for that conversation. So my invitation to people is, you're never underestimate your impact, positive or negative, right? Because again, I'm butchering that exchange. Look it up. I think it's around. But the point of that exchange is something got triggered that had the man think differently. It wasn't like the black guy was trying to say you're wrong and you need to get out of there. No, he never said that. He just helped him think. And that led that man on his own to recognize that that's not aligned with his values. And I'm going to pray. Does not just going to do it, but does it, takes the action.
Do you think, and I think this is an important point, do you think that when in your experience and looking at what really are the core values of people as we are, first of all, I would say that regardless of what the media wants to tell us, there are actually very few people on either ends of this crazy continuum of belief system. Almost everyone lies more in the middle. At least, I would say. But do you feel like, whether you're super liberal, super conservative, somewhere in the middle, are the core family values and the core individual values from what you've seen, do they kind of exist in everybody?
Oh, gosh.
That's a hard question. I know that's a hard, deep question, but.
Literally, I'm getting goosebumps. It's a very hard question. And I'm obviously careful with generalizations. I would say in my experience, back to that topic, where I knew that the audience may be tough, and if they may not be people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, every single interaction was really, I saw people get curious. I saw people pause, and rather than just spew their perspective, really, I got to think it. And I think I'm going to get quite a few clients from it, because they're like, right, I'm stuck and I want to figure out a new thing. You're right that DEI, diversity, inclusion, and belonging, it's become kind of for check the box activity. These had to do. This has actually, in my view, been a good year because it's been that pause, right? You've seen them, say, efforts around that work at companies has dropped. I don't think it's about that it's going away. I think it's about revamping. So, back to your question about values, I think, when there's that pause, then people get to really go back to them. And I love inviting people to go back to before the age of 10, ideally before the age of 5. What are those core beliefs and memories that now show up to how you show up, right? And can you connect with that metaphor, that low normal, that are you having a conversation with that voice? And often, it's about ignoring that part. And the tantrums are usually from that 3-year-old, right? That's now a 60-year-old or whatever. So if we have compassion for ourselves to have that conversation, journaling, to a therapist, your own, there are many ways to do it. Super valuable. So any level of success in the workplace, and wherever you are in life, from billionaires to park bench, that work is so important. You're right. Yeah, it's a tough one, and like to believe it. Get into the heart of those, and it is about errors.
Yeah, because I think everybody wants, they want a happy life. They want to have financial security. They want to have good health and good relationships and feel loved and connect with something greater than themselves, whatever that looks like for that particular person. And I think we muddy all of that stuff up with opinions and vitriol and anger, and like you said, and all of those things. I try to say a lot whenever I meet someone that's having some sort of like episode or whatever you want to call it. I had a situation the other day where somebody had done a video voicemail or done a voicemail over Facebook to somebody where they completely went off in a F-word laden, tirade. And first of all, I'm like, what would possess you to do that on a recording that now has been passed around and within this circle and publicly? But also it's like the first question is, who hurt you? Like, why? What would make you behave in this way, which is completely irrational and completely unacceptable in normal human society? But everybody has a story. Everybody comes to where they are based on something that they've experienced over time. And to your point about kind of the kid thing, I actually keep a picture on my wall of my wife when she was 4 or 5 years old. It's got this cute little fishing picture, this fish that she caught. But she noticed it the other day, and she was like, I forgot that you have that. And I go, yeah, because that's the little girl that's inside of you that I want to cherish and protect and serve and all that. And so I think that's an interesting kind of way to look at other people.
So beautiful, Kevin. Thank you for sharing that, and good for you that you do that. Back to the example though, the video. Again, that's an example of being lazy. Right? Because that same person, if they just took a deep breath, what are some options? And it's such a one-sided thing. Just putting that out there. My favorite one is going face to face, in person, knee to knee, eye to eye. Super uncomfortable for a lot of us, and given a chance for a conversation like you, Connor, navigate. Most people don't do that.
No. Well, that you mentioned kind of this threat of violence as a barometer or as a warning, and there is people, and I've said it myself. It's like if you say the things that you're allowing yourself to say behind this computer screen and keyboard, if you tried to say, you would never say that in front of someone because you may get punched in the face, right? Like you have this kind of, you're pulled back from any threat of actual consequence. Let's not even call it violence, but any kind of consequence, right? Like, but to be able to sit next to the cowboy in first class and to have an open, honest conversation, if you start a tirade about this guy's life and morals and integrity and all of those things, like, first of all, he's ex-military, so that's a dangerous thing to do. But like in almost any situation, people are a little nuts right now. You know, you see all the Karen videos and people getting out of their cars and banging on people's windshields and kicking their doors and all this crazy stuff. But like, if you are able to put yourself mentally, it seems, into a position that I actually can hurt this person and they can hurt me back, that may change your perspective.
Yeah, exactly. And the flip of that, if you are courageous to go there, is back to your great question about, it's hurting personally. How can I have compassion? Like, how can I be that person with that hurt? Again, I have to be also careful with no attachment to outcome. I'm not at all, I'm mature enough now to know that I'm not going to hold on to believing that I can have moments like that one, the KKK story, right? No way. Like, boy, those are gems that don't happen every day.
Yeah, right.
Well, all I'm trying to do is change myself, and so that takes work. And again, that's the invitation to your listeners. Check it in yourself. Where are you not going? Because it's so uncomfortable. It's so scary. And actually, if you just did it, it could be. Like it said, right? The truth should set you free. But most of us don't want the truth. It's so much easier to hide behind all the other stuff. Yeah, I want to go back, Kevin, if it's okay with you, you said earlier when we were talking sort of in the corporate space.
Sure.
I do want to share with your listeners another sort of vantage point that I had with our friends that have been or are had lived in diversity, equity, and belonging at large companies, mostly Black women. And to your point about, you check the box, you hire that person, and then the whole or C-suite feel like, yep, we did our part. Mm-hmm. Right? That's the extreme version of how that's happening. There are a few exceptions where that leader really does get to impact overall strategy, is part of the C-suite, chief diversity officer. But even there, there've been so many missteps, right? And so what happens with those roles? They either very few of them get to do really what they're there to do. Right. So that they compromise. It's like, okay, in order to really please the board and the shareholder and the C-suite, we won't go edgy here and won't stick our neck out. And so they're compromising really on their values and their original intent of what they wanted to accomplish and change they wanted to have. That's a very common theme. The other one is just play along, get that big paycheck, do those check the box things, smile, do press releases, and there's a lot of that. And then the third is, I can't do this anymore. I'm out of integrity to be doing this job, and I'm going to quit or get fired. I'm making that up, like three buckets. But what's very interesting about that is that, this, if we broaden it up now in terms of like business impact and your social impact, you probably heard Bud Light story. Right? Mm-hmm. Light went and decided to support a transgender influencer on social media. I don't know the inside story in that, but what I assume happened is marketing group wanted to attract young people. They thought this would be one way to do that. That Gen Z are known to be, quite favorable to that group of marginalized people. But they didn't step back. They didn't look at, wait a minute, let's see. 90% of people who buy our beer are baby boomers. And most of them would not really like this influencer and what we're doing. And sure enough, there are literally charts that show you up.
Oh, yeah. Hey guys, thanks for listening to this episode. I hope you're enjoying it and learning a lot. If you're looking for extra help, don't forget that I do offer one-on-one coaching. We can talk through a ton of different issues. I can give you guides, guidelines, and logistical help to help you take that next step or go to that next level in some of the things that you're dealing with in your life. We also have some course content, some guides, and a lot of educational materials over at maxedoutman.com. For the coaching, go ahead and go to maxedoutman.com/coaching, and you can learn about that. And then just go to maxedoutman.com for everything else. Thanks for joining us. Now back to the episode.
Tact, right? So here's my message that, it's a compare and contrast. So Nike, who has made many mistakes as well, we can say a lot about that, but just staying with that same parallel story, with that same transgender influencer, Nike said, we're doubling now. Like, we are not going to, cancel that person. We will leave penalties. And again, they did it. It's not just to be obnoxious or something. They know their audience. They know it's the top brand among Gen Zs. And so they very strategically did the right thing for their audience, regardless of whether you agree with their stand or not. So that's another example of, Bud Light didn't think through it enough. Nike thought through it pretty well on that one, right? Again, everybody makes mistakes, but on that one, that's the compare and contrast to sort of what's possible when we can really run our life, right? And make a strategic choice. For instance, Bud Light may have been right. They're saying, yep, this is going to hurt. But for our future, we need to say goodbye to the baby. We need to start welcoming redone. I find it hard to believe that they'll be able to do that with all the other, competitive factors. But if they were strategic and said that, then they should have stayed the course, right? And despite all that backlash, they should have supported that, but they didn't. So again, my point is, don't waffle like that. Another company I really admire is Chick-fil-A. They're church-based. They close their shops on Sundays. Many people don't like them, but I like that's an example of not being in shadow. They don't suppress or deny who they really are. They put it out there, and you get to choose as a consumer if you want to support them. Right? I get to choose, you get to choose. That's where we need to be. We need people and companies to be more courageous, to take a stand, and recognize when you're deliberately doing separation.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that sort of, this is all me for any particular art. Right? I really believe that America is about inclusion.
Yeah, and it was interesting, the Bud Light thing, because they almost doubled down. And obviously, I don't know if she was a scapegoat or whatever, but, then she came out and was like, well, we got to get past all our good old boy frat guy thing. Like, not only did you already insult your main customer base, but then you just totally did it openly to say they're a bunch of, and obviously she got fired, all of that stuff. But that was an interesting miscalculation. So I find it fascinating what you're saying, because so many people, when they think about DEI and DEIB, when we include that, is it's like, this is that checkbox, and all companies are forced to do it. They have to do it. And that's not necessary. They need to do it in a way that aligns with from a business standpoint, right? Like that was take all the culture crap out of it. That was a terrible business decision. That would be like, they support NASCAR, and they were huge in Sturgis. And there's videos of the Sturgis rally this last August where literally their stand was completely empty. Like they had no customers whatsoever. And I would hate to be the guys working that booth, but so like they, and like Chick-fil-A, it's funny. I was talking to my wife. She went to Atlanta to visit my youngest the other day, and they went to Chick-fil-A, and I'm like, this is the greatest marketing company on earth, because it's a giant chicken nugget, a pickle on a crappy white bun. The fact that they've convinced people that this is some sort of godly food and it's terrible, and I'm going to get a lot of hate from feel free to comment if you like Chick-fil-A, but I think it's completely overrated. So I'll just say that. But like, they have figured out a way to align their company values with their end customer and lean into that, like you're saying. And Nike's doing the same, right? Nike's demographic is different than Bud Light's demographic. So it fits them better. And it's some people will decide not to buy Nikes because that's they're pushing, or not necessarily even pushing, but supporting a particular agenda, if you want to call it, or whatever. But I love the fact that you're saying that you when it comes to DEI stuff, the trend now is just check that box corporately and just do it. But you're saying that it needs to align with your overall culture.
It really does, and all the way through the strategy. So to relegate it to just doing initiatives and programs and Juneteenth, not good. Those are checked boxes. It's the day-to-day stuff, right, that really makes a difference. And the reason I think belonging has become such a big topic the last few years is again trying to get at the separation, but even the way that's approached has to be examined carefully. Because you can't really have belonging without the true DEI, right? And let's keep it simple. Let's keep it to women, right? Be even white women, and the fact that they're clearly there's data that shows they're paid less than white men at the same level. Are CEOs willing to really go for that and go, this is wrong, you got to fix it? And very few are.
Yeah, I've told this story on the podcast, and I've said it a lot, but my wife has done a lot of female or only builds for cars and welding and all that stuff. So I've spent a lot of time dealing with tradeswomen tradespeople that are women. And so it's an interesting dynamic. First of all, to be the only guy in a shop of 30 women is interesting, and to be sexually harassed in that way is kind of funny. My wife's like, you just like it, whatever. So, but like that, to really understand what they kind of go through, and what we have talked about, and I think I mentioned on the podcast too, is that there's a lot of these women, they want to lean, they have this super feminine side that you can see when you get to know them, but their outer persona is this like more masculine male type persona that they feel like that they kind of have to portray in order to survive in these male dominated industries.
Well, that's a huge topic, but just briefly what I'll say is I think another area we're going to get curious about is if you really look around, those beliefs that we've taken on, how things should be, are very patriarchal, male dominated, right? So, and women are just perpetuating that, right? We showing up to be aggressive. Yes, you should definitely speak the truth. Yes, you should be loud if you need to be. I'm not saying that. Well, what I'm saying is most of it ends up being, I'm going to meet them their game, rather than, to your point, bring your real self, whatever that is, what version of feminine or masculine you are. And that really, let's be honest, I hope you agree with me on this. We all are a blend, right? We're not.
Right.
Genes that are, a combination of those genes. So I don't know enough about it, but I'm very intrigued by societies or history that have been matriarchal. Right? Women really lead. And if you look in terms of, governments every year, I think are really not the best example. But, New Zealand, right? They have an example of that with a leader and have navigated that. Many other countries have. So I get very curious to learn, how is it different? And can there be a better way to not just the macho ego aspect? Not that women can't be, right? Again,
right.
So, just challenge ourselves around, is it the forcing function of that they're modeling what they're seeing around them? And so in order for them to succeed, they have to behave like the men leaders do. That needs to be challenged. So
yeah.
Give space for a different way of leading, which can be full of compassion and empathy, but powerful, right? Doesn't mean, those words don't mean that you're soft or look the other way when there are tough decisions to be made. I think women can be extremely powerful, and I really wish that we truly give them a chance at every level in this country.
Yeah, I joke with Michelle that's like, really, you first of all, she's smarter than me, she's better with people than I am, she's more intuitive than I am and empathetic than I am. Like I have this illusion of kind of, being in any sort of control in in this relationship. And the only reason I'm allowed to have that is because you give me that illusion. And it's kind of a joke, but like, women, it's a conglomerate, right? And I think in the quote unquote business of the family, it works really well to have, a masculine and a feminine, and it allows us to be better parents and better people and better community leaders and all of those things. And I think that goes out, for the greater good and the greater culture. At the risk of repeating yourself, can you give us, if we're just talking about, we've got business people here that are listening, we have people that are just normal employees, normal people. What would you say, like a couple of things that they can do today to have an impact when it comes to this topic?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I think the theme of what we've been chatting about as we wrap up here is to really challenge yourself to lift your environment, be it home, work, groups that you interact with, and be honest about, like, on a scale of thriving to toxic, right? Where, like, let's say thriving is everyone's happy, everyone truly connects, speaks the truth, they don't talk behind each other's back, there's no passive aggressiveness, they're willing to go to those difficult conversations rather than walking away from them. That, to me, is thriving, right? It's not just happy people, it's doing that hard work. Toxic, on the other hand, I have numerous examples of mine that retain leaders that bring in the dough, do great for the business, but are disastrous to people. They cut people down, they create separation, they don't model true leadership skills of bringing people up and mentoring and coaching. So watch out for that, and then are you willing to speak up to that? Because that's what I help. And luckily, I have CEOs that see that they don't know what they don't. And so, the way we go in and work with them is first just listening, but then very data oriented. And then the kind of surveys that I do are beyond just the basic sort of engagement surveys. We really get at trying to connect with both the heart and the mind of the people so that we can give the leadership team a real good benchmark of what's really happening. And what I invite leaders to do when we do those is I want to hear their hypothesis, right? If you think that everyone's happy and smiling, great. Let's go look for that. Let's see if that's true. And then let's cut the data by different group types, men and women, age. Age is a big one. We are talking about, differences by generation, longevity, how long people have worked at the company. And then, yes, of course, diversity of the inclusion groups. But even if you just stay with those basics, right? Because a lot of clients I work with are like in parts of the country where they feel they can't recruit people that are diverse because they don't exist in that market. And you shut them in or you don't need to. And I go, we won't get into that topic today, but there are ways to do that. But again, it's about your commitment, right?
Yeah.
And to your point earlier, no, it's not about filling a role for a color. It's getting the right person in the right job. And there's a combination of doing that, right? So if you build relationships with historically Black colleges and you build that over time and you really are there to connect with them, you're there to help them mentor and raise them up, those are the kind of things we're talking about, right?
That's awesome. How do we learn more about you and what you do? And hopefully we'll get some CEOs listen to this that want to hire you.
And listen, I'm thinking about that. I think my unique thing is I do what I do with such a blend of mind and heart that's I'll say this actually is probably my favorite plug to myself. When I'm pitching a new CEO or group of C-suite leaders and they're kind of looking for, all right, Bobby, what's your big differentiator? What result can you show me? And yeah, I've worked at places like Microsoft and all that. So that's on the resume. You can read that. But when I look at them literally eye to eye and go, my superpower is my smile. I'll laugh just like that. And I usually close with just that, right? So yeah, the way to reach me, best way is email. So Bobby, BOBBY, at Bobby Bakshi, BOBBY, BAA.com. I'm sure Kevin. Put that in
Yep.
the notes. That's the best way to reach me. My website's also the same name, BobbyBakshi.com, and I'm on LinkedIn with frequently on LinkedIn to reach out.
That's awesome. Hey, I appreciate you talking. This has been super interesting, and I'll be the cowboy in this story because I am from Montana. So,
let me close with that deep gratitude for you, Kevin. Please keep doing what you're doing. We need more clean forums like this that bridge divides.
Thank you.
You're doing. So thank you for that.
I appreciate that. Awesome. Have an awesome day.
If you're looking to really maximize your life and become the man you were made to be, head over to maxedoutman.com and get your journey started today.